we are going to spend some time talking about the distributive property. So distribute means to hand out. Hand out. So when you distribute a piece of paper, you make sure everyone gets that piece of paper. So in math, when we distribute a number, every number gets what is distributed. So let's look at our first example. We have some food. So the first thing we're going to notice is there is a 7 outside of the parentheses, okay? There is nothing in between the 7 and the parentheses, so we have talked about in the past that there is an invisible multiplication symbol there. So I am going to distribute that 7 inside my parentheses. So that means my little Mountain Dew is going to get a 7. My hamburger is going to get a 7. So is the French fries and the apple. So every piece that is inside the parentheses is going to get that 7 and the multiplication sign. So if we notice down here, this is what it equals. We have 7, and again, there's an invisible multiplication symbol in there. So we have 7 Mountain Dews, 7 hamburgers, 7 fries, and 7 apples. Now, the next thing I want to point out is the operation in between all of the foods. So if we had a plus between the Mountain Dew and the burger, we still have a plus. Same with all of the other symbols. The middle symbols do not change. We just put the 7 on all of our symbols. Over here, we have it mathematically, so a bunch of letters. So we have an A outside the parentheses, and again, there's an invisible multiplication symbol there. So we're going to give the A to everything. So we have A times B, which is this first piece. Then we have that plus, which is still there. And then we're going to give the A in the C. So that's where the A times C comes from. So now we're going to do 4 practice problems just to kind of get a little bit more help with it. So on this one, I have a 4 outside the parentheses. Now, we know to distribute, if I look inside the parentheses, the 2m plus 6, I cannot really add that. So I have to distribute. That's the only thing I can do here. So I'm going to put my invisible multiplication symbol, and I am going to give my 4 to my 2m. So that means I have 4 times 2m. Okay, and then we talked about that middle plus sign is going to stay the same. So I'm going to put plus, and then I'm going to give my 4 to my 6. And again, remember, we are multiplying. So I have 4 times 6. So that is the first step. We give the 4 to the first part, and then the second part, leave the symbol the same. So now I need to actually solve. So at this point, I am going to put my 2 pieces of multiplication together. So 4 times 2m, I just do 4 times 2, which is 8, and I leave that letter alone. So 4 times 2m is 8m. That plus sign, again, never changes. It stays the same. Now I can solve this multiplication back here. So 4 times 6 is 24. And then I am left with a number with a letter and then just a number. So just like up here, I couldn't put those together because one has a letter. One has a letter here as well. And that is my final answer. 8m plus 24. We are done. Let's look at the next one. Okay. I have 8 times 4 minus 3z. Again, if I look in the parentheses, I can't do anything. One has a letter, one doesn't. I have my multiplication there. So I'm going to give my 8 times my 4. So I have 8 times 4. My symbol in the middle does not change, so that minus stays a minus. And then I am going to give my 8 to my 3z. So I have 8 times 3z. And then I can solve my multiplication. So I have 8 times 4, which is 32. My minus sign stays the same. And then 8 times 3, we just do the regular multiplication. 8 times 3 is 24. And then my z stays there. And then that is my final answer. I cannot do this subtraction because one has a letter and one does not. So we are good to go. So this next one, my number is in the back, so my parentheses is first, but there is a multiplication symbol there. So I can technically distribute. Again, inside the parentheses, I cannot put those two together. So I am going to distribute, okay? So if we wanted to even keep it in this order, I could do negative 6k times 2. And then I have my plus sign, so that's going to stay the same, plus. And then I am going to distribute my 2 and my 4, so I have 4 times 2, okay? And then I'm going to solve my 2 multiplication pieces. So I have a negative 6 times 2, so that means I need an integer man. When we multiply and divide negatives, we need to use integer man. So 6 times 2 is 12. 6 is negative, 2 is positive, so what's left? Negative. So negative 6 times 2 is negative 12k. And then my plus sign stays the same. And then 4 times 2 is 8. And I cannot put a letter and a number together. So that is my final answer on that one. So make sure you're keeping an eye out for integer mans with your negatives on these problems. All right, the next one. It is 3 parentheses 6r plus 2r minus 4r plus 7. Notice on this one, I have 3 things inside the parentheses and I have an extra piece at the back. So we're going to follow the same process. So I'm going to look here, okay, and I am going to look, I have my 3 on the outside, and I am going to distribute it into the inside. So I'm going to give it to everything. So remember, we have a multiplication sign there. So this is 3 times 6r. That is my first piece, okay. Then I have a plus sign in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and put my plus sign. Then I have 3 times 2r. 3 times 2r. Then I have a minus. Okay. And then I have 3 times 4r. Okay. So on this one, there was a third piece. You put it in there just the same. Okay. Now, at the very, very end, I have this plus 7 down here. This plus 7 does not change. It is on the outside of the parentheses. It is just going to stay plus 7 back there at the back. Okay? So now we can go through and do our pieces of multiplication just like we did on the other ones. So 3 times 6r, 3 times 6 is 18r, plus, and then 3 times 2r is going to give me 6r. Then I have a minus. 3 times 4r is going to be 12r. And then just like I talked about, that plus 7 is all by its lonesome. It's just a 7, so it stays plus 7. So now, this is where it gets a little bit different. On all the other ones, we had a letter and a number, and they were separate. On this one, I have more than one R. So I can put all of these R's together. So to finish solving this problem, I need to put these R's together. So I need to do 18 plus 6, which is 24, and then 24 minus 12 is 12. So again, I'm going to put all of those R's together because they are the same letter. Okay, so again, 18 plus 6 is 24, minus 12 is 12. So I have 12R, and there were R's, and then all that's left at the end is plus 7. So on this one, that is my final answer, and I cannot go anymore because this one has an R, this one doesn't, so I cannot put those together. Okay, and then we have our last problem down here. So Shay wrote the expression 5y plus 2 plus 4 to show the amount of money 5 friends paid for snacks at a basketball game. Which expression is equivalent to the one Shay wrote? So this is how you're probably going to see it on the star. So we know equivalent means equal, okay? They gave us this expression, and notice just like this one, it has a plus 4 at the back. So we had plus 7, and it's going to stay in my answer. So if I look, I can already get rid of an answer choice that does not have a plus 4, which would be this one right here. It has a times 4. We cannot change plus 4 to times 4, so H is already gone, okay? Now, if we look, I have a 5 outside, so that means I can distribute that 5 inside, because that's kind of what looks like they're going on here. So my 5 times, because remember there's an invisible sign, 5 times y, and then I have a plus sign, 5 times 2, and then I would have the plus 4. So if I look, I have 5 times y, this one has 5 plus y, so that one's gone. This one has 5 times y, okay, that piece is good. 5 times y, that's good. But then I have a plus sign, 5 times y plus. This one has a multiplication symbol in the middle. So that multiplication sign is bad, so J is the only one that matches every single piece. Last thing I'm going to tell you real quick is all else fails. If you get this question and you do not remember the distributive property, equivalent means equal. So we are going to check our answer to plug in 2 for the variable. So variable is letter. So wherever I see the letter, I'm going to put a 2 in. Okay, so for this, I'm going to write 5 times 2 instead of y plus 5 times 2 plus 4. Okay, same thing for the one that I had here. I have 5, 2 plus 2 plus 4. Okay, I'm going off of this one because remember I didn't know how to distribute, so I'm going off of this one. So then I would solve this and solve this. So for this one, I would need to do parentheses first. So 2 plus 2 would give me 4. So 5 times 4 plus 4. Then I would need to do my multiplication again. So 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 would be 24. Again, that was this one, so this one would equal 24. Okay, and then on this one, I would need to do my pieces of multiplication because in PEMDAS, multiplication becomes before adding. So 5 times 2 is 10. I have a plus sign. 5 times 2 is 10. I have a plus 4. And then 10 plus 10 is 20, plus 4 is 24. So that means this would equal 24, this would equal 24. So that is the last thing you can do to check is plug in 2.